Okay, so today we're going to learn about proportions. And proportions are when two ratios, also considered as fractions, are equal. So let's bring back to our example in the ratio video. So remember, for every two circles, there are three squares. And that's also considered as 2 over 3. And do you remember when I mentioned that if I add another layer right here, let's say copy, and if I add another one right on top of this one, then you see how then that becomes into to every four circles there are 6 squares, which is also the same as every 4 circles there are 6 squares. So I hope this is clear. So you see that over here, this would be this part, and then the 4 over 6 would be this part. So now when we're saying that proportions are when two ratios or fractions are equal to one another, then it comes back to that question again, how are we going to make this fraction look like this fraction? So you have to multiply two numbers by, multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number, which is 2 over 2, which is the same thing as 1 whole. So again, since 2 over 2, emphasizing on this, is essentially 1, then these two fractions are equivalent fractions. So these two ratios are proportionate to one another. Okay, so here's another example. Here it is. So here is another example. Let's say that I have one rectangle. Let's say that I have a rectangle right here. And I'm going to say that my width is 5. And my length is going to be, let's say, 25. Even though it doesn't really look like it, but it's okay. And then I have another rectangle, let's say right here, make it like this. And this rectangle is, let's say, 1 to 5. 1 to 5. Then essentially, to make it a ratio for this one, it would be, so then for the length, then that would be for every 5, and let me just say inches. For every 5 inches in width, there are 25 inches in length. So then that again is a ratio 5 to 25. Also the same, put it into a fraction form, 5 over 25. So then same thing goes over here. For every 1 inch in width, there will be 5 inches in length. So then that would be 1 to 5 ratio, or a 1 over 5. And these two ratios, since I said that they are proportionate to one another, that the measurements of these two rectangles are proportionate to other, then a number times a number should give me 5 over 25. Or same thing, if I can, or divide the numerator and denominator by the same number, then it should give me that. So if I want to turn 5 over 25th into 1/5, I can divide it by 5 over 5, which is again just one whole. So all you're really doing is just changing how the fractions look, but it doesn't mean that they are not that they are not the same, that they do not have the same value. So then I can do that, or I can also have it be 1 over, for 1/5 to turn to 5 over 25, 1 times 5 over 5 gives me 5 over 25th. And again, 5 over 5 is just one whole. It's just changing how the fraction looks, but not the value. And the proportion is still the same. Okay, so what's also neat about proportions is that you can use proportions to help you solve for percentages. So here's what I mean. So when you work with percentages, you're also working with a fraction. So keep this one in mind. It's very important. So for example, you have the percent over the 100. So the percent number over 100 will equal to the part over a whole. So as long as you remember this concept, you would do fine. This is something that you definitely need to remember, that the percent is over 100 equals part over whole. So here's an example. Let's say here's an easy one. Let's say that there are 50 questions on an exam, and I only got 25 correct. 25 total, and then 25 questions correct. What percentage did I get correct, or what do you think my grade would be? So to set up this proportion, part over a whole, my part would be 25 is correct over the whole, which is the 50 total questions. And then that should give me my percentage. So one thing that I could do, if I want to find out the percent number, one thing that I can do is cross multiply. Cross multiply. So I would look at the multiply here and set it as equivalent fractions again. So that would be 25 times 100 gives you 2,500, 2,500. And you have that question mark, 50 times that question mark. What is that question mark still? And then order of operations, you would then need to divide this by 50, divide this by 50, and you will get 50. So that question mark will equal 50. And remember that 50 over the 100 is also 50%. So then I scored half of them correct. So stay tuned for our next video on how to use proportions to figure out word problems with percentages using the part and the whole. So always remember this equation right here.